welcome to Personal History. I'm your host, Matt Staehle. In this episode, we're going to begin a new series of videos that focus on the paths of two brothers as they enlist and go through the Second World War. The two brothers are Art Staehle Jr., who's my grandfather, and Dan Staehle, his brother, who was featured in the prior video, The Big Mission. This follows them as they both enlist prior to the war and then go their different ways as the war progresses, coming full circle to when they both are back in the States after it ends. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this. If you like videos about history like this, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks. Arthur Jacob Staehle Jr., who went by Art, was born in 1918 to Arthur Jacob Staehle Sr. and Mary Josephine Murphy. Daniel Staehle was born in 1922 and was their third overall child and second son. Art and Dan both attended Dayton High School in Springfield, New Jersey, with Art graduating in 1937 and then immediately beginning a trucking career, following in the footsteps of Art Sr. Dan graduated in the summer of 1941. At this time, the whole family was still living in Springfield, New Jersey. The two brothers, along with discussing the topics with their father, decided that it was very likely that the United States would end up being drawn into World War II sooner rather than later. Not wanting to wait around and see what happened, they decided to go ahead and proactively enlist. They had a couple thoughts behind this. One was they wanted to do their duty. Their father had served in several U.S. military conflicts before, and they wanted to carry on his tradition. Two, they also felt that by enlisting early, they had a better chance of selecting what tasks they would actually be carrying out in the Army. Specifically, they both wanted to become pilots. They decided to go ahead and enlist, and went down to the recruiting office together to do so. And this is where they ran into some issues. The Staehle brothers were not particularly short. Dan was at least 6'4", and Art was between 6'6" and 6'7". This was going to be a serious problem if they were going to attempt to become pilots. As was a somewhat common practice as World War II was starting, recruiters often overlooked or fudged numbers to allow willing volunteers to go ahead and sign up. In Dan's case, they magically shrunk him from 6'4" to 6'2" on his ID, despite his photo clearly showing him standing next to a height bar that shows him at being over 6'4". In Art's case, there was no way of hiding 6'7", and he was also slightly flat-footed. So what ended up happening was Dan was accepted to go ahead and enlist and start basic training in December of 1941. Art, however, was told that because of being flat-footed and too tall, he was being given a medical disqualification, but also told to stay in touch with his draft board because they suspected that would change as soon as hostilities actually broke out with the United States. Sure enough, within a couple of days after Pearl Harbor being attacked on December 7th, 1941, Art received a call from his local draft board, informing him that his medical issues had been resolved and that he was now going to be admitted into the Army. He was told to report in early January. He continued with his truck driving job for the remainder of the month, and after he resigned that position to go ahead and report for duty, he went and bought a brand new 1941 Nash, drove it straight from the dealership to his parents' house, put it in the garage, and covered it up so it would be waiting for him when he returned from the war. The next morning he got on a bus, took it to Elizabeth, New Jersey, where he reported for duty at the Elizabeth, New Jersey Armory, and was enlisted into the Army at that point. With Dan already off in basic training, and Art now going off to start his enlistment, and realizing that he was far too tall to ever be allowed to fit in an airplane cockpit, Art and Dan had gone to war, but ended up going in very different directions, and would end up with quite different paths, both during the war and on their way home.